All right, how's it going? This right here is actually my first live feed. I'm just trying to figure stuff out right now. Um, Hopefully, I can make this thing an ongoing thing where I can live feed some suppressor demos or machine guns that I got coming in or already built, or heck, just what I've got in stock or in inventory to sale. But that's not why I'm doing this one today. The reason I'm doing this one today is to talk about Mississippi's Medical Cannabis Act that they just passed and what that actually means to you as a citizen of Mississippi. Right. So the first thing I'm going to address right now is there's a lot of people who are like, oh well, you're just against marijuana. I am not against marijuana. Right. I think medicinal marijuana has is a viable source of relief for a lot of people. I believe that it is a great substitute for the opioids that the big pharmaceutical companies and even the VA, which takes care of me, are trying to shove down our throat. Opioids are probably doing more damage than they are good. So I'm a big supporter of the medical marijuana itself. I am not a supporter of the way Mississippi is doing it. This medical bill right here requires you to give up your rights in order to seek medical treatment of this alternative medication. I don't believe that should be necessary or should be a condition of seeking help. So that's why I'm doing this video. I've got the bill right here. Nothing that I'm going to say about this is going to be opinionated. I will read it verbatim off the bill, federal and state, so that you see exactly what you're about to give up or what is going to be required of you in order to seek said medical help. Um, the other thing I hear a lot of is, well, Colorado's doing this or that, Oklahoma's doing that, Illinois is doing that. That's great for those states. This bill right here was signed by the governor of Mississippi for the state of Mississippi. So this is the only one that really matters to me. I don't care how Colorado does it. I don't care how Oklahoma does it. This is how Mississippi is going to do it. So that's why my target audience today is my home state of Mississippi. Um, because this bill right here is the one that applies to us, regardless of how any other state's doing it. This one is the one that's going to get us in trouble or get us relief, whichever way it goes. All right. The other thing I heard is, well, they got a bill in for this, or they're going to try to do that. That's great. They got a bill in. They're going to try to do yakety yakety yakety. Don't care. This one is the one that was signed by the governor. This one is the one that went through all the legislation. This one right here is the only one that matters right now. All right. And for me, myself, being a gun dealer, I'm going to throw a lot of that at you as well. So when I finish with this part, I'm going to go to the federal part and what that means for you as a gun owner. And I'm also going to dispel some myths and other things I've heard people say as well. All right. So let's dive down into this thing right here. Oh, and by the way, if you want to read this for yourself, in the description, I have actually dropped a link to this bill. So you can go and read it for yourself. You don't even have to take my word for it that I'm reading this verbatim. You could go read it yourself. One of the first things on here, and you see I got all these things highlighted. So these are major concerns I have. These are major concerns you should also have if you read it. One of them is that they will require the Department of Health to maintain a confidential list of registry identification cards, to require certain notifications from qualifying patients. If you get on medical marijuana in the state of Mississippi, you have to go on a registry. They will require you to give them certain information, and you will be on a registry. How do you feel about that? who is that registry going to be shared with? It says confidential list, but if you look at the HIPAA guidelines for medical marijuana, they can share the fact that you are on medical marijuana. They cannot share the reason why. So that's how they'll get around the HIPAA thing. Once again, Google's your best friend. Don't take my word for it. Google it. Prove me wrong, because I already did. I do not believe that you should have to register to get help. If this is truly a medicinal purpose and they're doing it for the right reasons and they're doing it for the good of humanity and they want you to get better, why do you have to get on a registry? I can go to the doctor right now and I can get a prescription for some pretty heavy stuff, some oxycodone, for example. Oxycodone. Some stuff. I don't need a card. Doctor signs his name to a piece of paper. I take it to my local pharmacy. It gets filled. I go home. Nobody regulates me. Nobody puts me on a registry. Nobody gives me a card. Why is it that this one is so different? And for something like I said, oxycodone is some hard stuff, and it's not, like I said, I don't think it's making anything better. I think it's making more things worse than it is better. And that's why I agree with medical marijuana as the product. I don't think I should have to go on a registry to get help. All right. But let's move on. To provide nothing in the act prohibits an employer from disciplining an employee for ingesting medical cannabis in the workplace or for working while under the influence of medical cannabis. Excuse me. What that means is if you're on medicinal marijuana, you can still be fired or denied employment for being on medical marijuana. The state has offered zero protection from unemployment for you for seeking help for alternative medications that they now say is okay. All right. I know people on pain pills. They go to work, they pop some pain pills. It's prescribed to them. It's perfectly legal, and their job is not in jeopardy. Why is this one so different? Why? Why would they offer you no protection of losing your job? And let's face it, um, you could have seen this coming a mile away. If an employer has every right to terminate your employment for not being vaccinated against whatever, you can say a COVID vaccination, you can expand that to chickenpox vaccinations, hepatitis vaccinations. It could be any vaccination anymore, right? We've opened Pandora's box. It could be anything now. If they're not willing to safeguard your employment against stuff like that, they're not willing to safeguard your employment against stuff like this. So that means at the risk of your job, you can get on medical cannabis. But you risk your job. I don't know who this applies to. You need to ask your employers because every employer is going to look at it different. Like I said, this is all on individual employers. But you as the employee is going to have to put up with whatever that employer wants you to do. And they've already proven that. And they've already proven that you will not be protected. Moving on. To provide that nothing in the act requires a government medical assistance program or private insurer to reimburse a person for costs associated with medical use of medical cannabis. That means that there is no protection for your healthcare coverage. A government medical assistance program is your Medicaid, Medicare, or private insurer. What they're saying is we can't make these people pay for your treatment. If you do a quick Google search, not a lot of them will. You need to get with your healthcare insurance companies individually and see how they're going to handle that. The reason I say that is because, once again, Google being your best friend, you can find different insurance companies. Some will raise your premiums, some will drop your coverage entirely. I have found zero so far that will have zero changes. So, meaning that there's none right now that will either retain you or keep you at your same cost for being on medical cannabis. They will not. Right now, it all looks like they will either raise your premium, but they'll still keep you covered, or they won't cover you at all. One of the two. Now, for the government medical assistance, remember, just because this state passed this does not mean anything on the federal level. Federally, marijuana is still a Schedule 1 drug, and we will get more into that later, but as a Schedule 1 drug, it is still federally illegal. So I would, if you're on Medicaid, Medicare, or any other government assistance, I would ask. I don't know if they're going to drop you, but I would ask. Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt to ask before you get into it, mind you. Don't wait until after and then all of a sudden you're up shit creek. All right? The act does not authorize any individual to engage in nor prevent the imposition of any civil, criminal, or other penalties for certain acts related to the use of medical cannabis. What that means is you're not going to be legally protected for anything dealing with marijuana. And the reason I chose that one for last is actually higher up in the bill. It's actually, if you look at all this, it's actually right about there. It's higher up in the bill. The reason I chose to read that particular sentence for last is because now here's where I get into it as an FFL dealer. I sell firearms. Every firearm that is transferred out legally from a dealer requires the filling out of this form. This is the form 4473. This is a firearm transaction record. Everyone will fill out this form, whether you got a concealed carry or not. The only thing a concealed carry does was bypass the background check, right? And I'll get in more on the concealed carry side as well. But this right here is a federal document. So with that being said, let me read this straight off of this piece of paper. Are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? You notice marijuana is the only one it called out by name. Everything else is just a general category of a drug. Marijuana is the only one called out by name. But I'm not finished reading. There is also a warning on this just under that question. Warning: the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law, regardless of whether it has been legalized or decriminalized for medical or recreational purposes in the state where you reside. That means if you have a medical marijuana card that you have to be on a registry for, you are no longer afforded the opportunity to buy a firearm. You become a prohibited person. Let that sink in. In order to get alternative treatment, you need to give up your Second Amendment rights. You're a prohibited person as soon as you have that card in your hand. I've heard a lot of people, and this is where I'm going to go back into it. Here, I've heard a lot of people go, well, why don't you just check the no button or check the no and keep going, right? I am not an unlawful user, so I'm going to check no and go on. If you check no and you are found with a firearm and they come back as part of their investigation and they pull this piece of paper out of my file, you lied on a federal form. That's a felony. You're a felon at that point. All right? Warning: any person who transfers a firearm to any person he, she knows or has reasonable cause to believe is prohibited from receiving or possessing a firearm violates the law 18 U.S. Code 922D, even if the transferor seller has complied with the federal background check requirements. Any person. So that means even if you do a private sale from non-dealer to non-dealer. If the person selling the gun to the other person knows that that person is on medical marijuana, they are now both felons. Let that sink in. We all know the old saying, it's only illegal until you get caught, right? Or it's only illegal if you get caught, not until. It's only illegal if you get caught. True enough. But how easy is it going to be to get caught? You're on a registry. Who else is that registry shared with? If I have to run a background check, your name's going to pop up. Here's a registry. Here's a background check. How easy is it going to be for them to go, oh, we now have probable cause to get a search warrant? Am I saying that's what's going to happen? No. But I am saying that that is a possibility, okay? I am not going to say that is 100% what is going to happen. It might not. But they didn't tell you it wasn't. The other thing about this is I don't know how much I don't know how much discretion law enforcement's going to have in a situation like this, where you have a legally purchased and possessed firearm and a legal amount of marijuana that you have a card for, and they pull you over for a traffic stop and they find them. All right. I don't know how much leeway or discretion LEO is going to have with a situation like that. One scenario is they could go, you know what? You purchased them both legally. I don't care. Go on your way. The other scenario is get in the back of the car. We're going downtown. You're a felon. You have a Schedule 1 narcotic and a firearm at the same time. That is a felony according to U.S. Code 18 U.S. Code 922D. It is also a felony according to 27 CFR 478.102. It's a felony according to the Gun Control Act, and it's a felony according to the National Firearms Act. 4 federal laws against your right to own a medical marijuana card and a gun at the same time. So, this is one of those be careful what you wish for, you just may get it. There's people that voted for this 2 years ago, and this thing just passed 3 months ago. Or somewhere around there. About 3-ish months ago. 3 or 4 months ago. If you go to that link that I provided, you can actually see all the steps that it took before it passed. You will see that it went through about 9 reiterations before it finally passed. This bill is not the same bill you voted for. I guarantee it. Now, they heard me talk about drug schedules and that marijuana remains a Schedule 1 drug, right? Cool. What does that mean? Well, Schedule 1 drug means it is the most illegal drug that the United States federal government has identified. On this list of Schedule 1 drugs, and I'm doing this for a comparison, on this list of Schedule 1 drugs is heroin, LSD, marijuana, ecstasy, and peyote. Those are some examples of what Schedule 1 are. Schedule 2, these are less illegal. Basically, they identify these drugs as dangerous, but they have medicinal qualities. So you're allowed to have these. These are still, what are they called? Like restricted medications. You still have to have a, no kidding, prescription for them and all that stuff. They're regulated. Some of those on the Schedule 2 include cocaine, methamphetamine, methadone, fentanyl, Adderall, Ritalin, Vicodin, and some other ones that I'm not going to try to pronounce. But those are Schedule 2. They're telling you right now, methamphetamine, cocaine, and fentanyl is less dangerous than marijuana. That's a federal schedule of classification of drugs, right? So just because the state passed it does not mean the feds have, which still makes it federally illegal. And I don't think a lot of people recognize that. A lot of people don't even ask that question. A lot of people don't even put the two and two together until someone like me starts reading this and then posting it and trying to raise your awareness of what this can mean for you. All right. So right now, I know for a fact that the city of Carthage has opted in, which means they can never opt out. So whatever horrible legislation they come out with at the state level, the city of Carthage is going to have to abide by. They can never opt out. That's how they wrote it in here. The county of Leake has opted out until the state and the feds get their stuff under control or have passed something that will maybe put some protections in place for their constituents. I agree that the best thing to do right now would be to opt out. That's a personal opinion there. All right. Everything that I read to you is right off of these things right here. This is not my opinion. This is the law. Opting out is my opinion. We should opt out or should have opt out. I know I went to the alderman meeting. They opted to stay in. I know I had my hand raised because I wanted to address the the panel, and basically the mayor just waved me off. Like she didn't let me speak or nothing, just waved me off. She didn't want to hear nothing of it. So that's how some of our elected officials treat their constituents. So remember, your vote does count. And remember how you were treated while they were in as well. Um, like I said, I wasn't going up there to say anything was good or bad. I was literally going up there to read this for them because they obviously didn't read it. They're not going to put any protections in place for you because they don't have that kind of authority or power. Hell, the state doesn't have that kind of authority or power. If you want to make a real difference, you need to do it at the federal level. They need to remove marijuana from the Schedule 1 classification, and then none of this is an issue. None of it. Once they remove it from Schedule 1 classification, you no longer, well, the state may still make you register, but there would be no reason for it, so why should they? Now you can work on the state level. You're not going to need it won't affect your ability to own firearms anymore. Why? Because it's no longer a Schedule 1 drug. They could take that off of this 4473 form. It's no longer relevant. So your fight isn't with the aldermen. Your fight isn't with the supervisors. It's not even with the state. It's at the federal level. If you want to make a real difference, you need to contact your senators and representatives at the federal level and tell them to remove it from the Schedule 1 classification. And I know that this has been done probably about 13 times over the last decade and a half. I don't know how far back it goes. I've known this exact issue has been in front of them about 13 times. Why? Google. And it has failed every time. It has failed every time. Why has it failed every time? Why is marijuana the only drug called out by name? Why do you have to register to get medicinal help? Why do you need a card for medication? No other medication makes you get a card for it. These are all questions you should be asking and researching on your own, and then asking some more of your elected officials on how they plan to protect you and your rights should you choose to seek medical attention. Because that's what it comes down to. You could seek medical attention, but you're going to be registered, you're going to be tracked, you're going to lose some of your rights. Right now in the state of Mississippi, if you already own a gun, you can still own a gun. They're not coming to take them away, or giving up your guns isn't going to be, as far as I know, isn't going to be a condition of you getting a card. But if someone knows you have a gun and now you get a card and they call in the federal, they call you in as a felon for having drugs and firearms at the same time, you've been offered zero protection against that. You're a felon, depending on how the LEO is going to treat it. Talk to your sheriff, talk to your police chief, talk to the state highway patrol. I don't know. I can't answer that for them. All I'm saying is that's a reality that may happen. So the bottom line is, if you want to continue to own one of these, or for my younger generation, one of these, then you either have to lie on a federal form, or you have to not seek medical attention that you may need. So, like I said, you contact me, ask me any questions. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to find out for you. I've already asked a couple LEO how they plan on handling this. They don't know yet. That's the simple answer there. They don't know yet either. Well, here locally, I don't know about anywhere else how they plan on handling it, but here locally, they don't know yet. And I'm not going to answer that for them. But I'm just going to leave this with, or I'm going to end this with, one, be careful who you vote for. They may not care about what you want to say, even whether they agree with it or not. They have a sworn duty to listen to their constituents. They work for us, the people, not the other way around, right? So me being waved off by the mayor herself told me a lot about her mentality in that position. Two, be careful what you wish for. You just may get it, but you're going to have to get everything that comes with it. All right? What does that mean for the city of Carthage? Guess you're about to find out, ain't you? And other than that, like I said, I'm going to end this thing. This was my first live as a gun dealer. That is my position on this, is I would love to still transfer you firearms. I would. But the federal government says I cannot. So unless you lie on a federal form, that's honestly the only way you're going to be able to own a firearm under the care of medicinal marijuana. Right? Once again, check in with your insurance, your health insurance providers. Make sure they're not going to drop you or raise your premiums, because that's a possibility, before you get on it. You may have to even change service providers. Some doctors, from what I understand in this state, will not prescribe it. So check with them too. And what was the other one? Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, just keep on your state and federal senators and representatives. They work for you. Call them, email them, let them know how you feel. Like I said, you shouldn't have to register to seek medical attention. You shouldn't have to register anything for anything. That is the most anti-American thing I've ever heard of. The most anti-freedom thing I can think of is to put people on a registry. It didn't go so well in our past history, or other countries' past history, that we're supposed to be learning from, right? So, that's it from me. All right. Hopefully, the next few videos I do, as I'm still starting to learn this stuff, be more uplifting, more educational or entertaining. Actually, I put entertainment on most of my stuff because, like I said, I do the suppressor demos, I do the full auto demos. Um, I would love to be more entertaining than this, but like I said, I felt the need to bring this out because one, this affects my state, it affects my customers, and it affects my business. And it should affect you personally as well because, I mean, this applies to all of us in the state of Mississippi. Regardless of what other states are doing, this is the one that affects us all as Mississippians. So, like I said, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to give me a call. If you disagree with me, let me know. We can have a conversation about this. I I can sit there and have a civil discussion. I don't get mad. I like to see other people's point of views, and I like to learn from other people. So, but just know that everything I read is black and white. You can't really argue the law. It's black and white. So, my thing is if you really want to get medicinal marijuana passed and you want this to be a viable thing, let me know. If you want to go petition the federal government to remove it from Schedule 1 classification, that's a petition I'm willing to sign. If you want to get a petition together to make the supervisors opt into this piss poor plan, that is not a petition I'm willing to sign. All right. So there's a difference between the two. There's a difference between supporting medical marijuana and supporting what the state says is medical marijuana. There's a main difference there. All right. So once again, I think this has ran on long enough. I'm going to go ahead and figure out what I'm going to do for my next video, and I'll see you all later. All right. You have a good time.